I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, viewer mailbag here. Owen, I could be wrong, but the subject, I suspect a lot of potential buyers of new condos do not like the idea of the requirements for so many affordable units, either rental or social housing within the strata. You pay a lot of money and you end up subsidizing other people that really should be living in an area more appropriate to their financial circumstances. I really enjoy your videos, but I thought your tie stole the show. Okay, thank you. My wife, who buys most of my ties, will be pleased with that. So it's a good question. So this is something that I've addressed probably 2 or 3 times over the last 10 years. I've talked about this, how, there's a lot of strata being built downtown here over the last 10 years. A lot of it is luxury strata that has a rental component or a social housing component within the building. Separate entrances usually. How do I feel about that? Well, I've done research on this, and I can tell you guys unequivocally that if you are in a luxury strata that has a subsidized housing, a social housing component. Now, don't paint me out to be a bad guy. There's nothing wrong with social housing. These aren't SROs, and these are good people that are in these social housing. In a lot of cases, maybe they're nurses, or I'm not sure how you win the lottery, to be honest, to get this, 25 or 30% below market housing. You get on a waiting list. But make no bones about it, these do affect the appreciation of those condos, of the stratified portion, to varying degrees. It all depends on the building, the price point of this building. Is it, selling at 15, 16, 1,800 a square foot, or is it selling more like around 1,200 a square foot? Does it have a social housing component, and if so, how many units? Or is it a market rental component? So, I'll give you a couple examples here. There's one, both of them are in the West End, because that seems to be where a lot of these are. They're both about 10-year-old strata. One is a luxury strata that, a typical 2-bed in here would be about 1.8 million, and then there's units that go well into the $3 million mark. There is a social housing component. I believe it's about 35 units. Now, they're on a separate entrance, but there is a social housing component. And again, these are good people that are getting into these social housing component here. Don't get me wrong with this, but I do notice that the appreciation on this strata over the last 7 or 8 years is not as good as a comparable strata a few blocks away that is 100% strata and does not have a social housing component. Now, the other case, I had one that I just sold recently, another one in the West End, about a 12-year-old strata. Now, this strata it's a nice strata, but I wouldn't call it, ultra luxury like the other one I had pointed out. And the one I was selling was a basic 1-bed in there, nice finishings, AC, but, in and around the 700,000 range. So we're not talking a $2 or $2.5 million unit. That building had a market rental component that did share the same entrance, but it was market rental. So 1 bedrooms were $3,000, 2 beds were, over $4,000. So they weren't subsidized. With that, I don't have as big of a problem. I think those, would appreciate pretty much similar to what something that didn't have that market rental component. But again, it's personal preference. Would I want to be in those? I think I would probably just lean towards a building that doesn't have it, because it's pretty easy to find something comparable that is 100% strata. But it depends on what you're selling. I wouldn't want to be in a $3 million unit in that market rental one. But having a 1-bed at $700K or a studio, probably not going to influence the price as much. But the first one I talked about with the social housing component, separate entrance and everything, but I do think it's a bit of an anchor on your appreciation. I really do. If it was me personally, this is just personal opinion, and I was on the market for a $2 million 2-bed, I would probably be leaning towards a 100% stratified building where everybody is an owner. Second thing I wanted to talk about, I see these all the time. Story in I think this was the Globe and Mail. Owner of 2 Vancouver condos gets 3 empty home tax audits in the same year. and this isn't unusual, a month after fighting a fine for 2021 that was eventually reversed, not surprising, you are guilty until proven innocent, both with the BC spec tax and the Vancouver Empty Homes tax. If you guys have seen this thing, they send you an invoice. It's like a bill that says you owe us $19,000. We're imposing the empty homes tax on you unless you verify that you're living in it, and they want all kinds of supporting documents, or you've got a tenant and you've got to submit the supporting documents. I've talked about these audits. I have been audited on every one of my investment properties. The only one I don't think I've been audited on yet is my principal residence that I live in, but it'll happen any day now, I'm sure, or any year. It's only a matter of time. And most of my clients, I do a little straw poll, I would say 70% of my investor clients have been audited over the last 2 or 3 years on one of their investment properties. And it's not fun. It's a total hassle. Now, I have nothing to hide. I keep impeccable records, like I tell you guys to do as well. Tenancy agreements, you've got your bank statements that show the money coming in from your tenant, whatever you need. Keep good records, I always tell you guys. Luckily, this guy kept impeccable records too, because they hit him with a fine, which was reversed because he disputed it and had all the proof, of course. But now he's received another audit for the same Main Street property, but this time for 2022. The other one was for 2021. Last month, this guy, Simon, was flabbergasted to get a letter from the City of Vancouver saying that he was under audit for the empty homes tax. It was the third one this year. He owns 2 small condos, one that he lives in on U Street and the other one on Main Street that he rents to tenants. Wilson bought the Main Street property in 2015 and was living there when he bought the second condo on U Street in 2021. He's a carpenter and said that in 2021 was his switchover year. He lived in the Main Street one while he drove to his U Street place, which was he was renovating. And see, that's where it gets weird. And I've done this myself, where I've wanted to renovate a property that I was living in, a principal residence. I waited till my tenant gave me notice on one of my rental properties, or in some cases on one of them, I had 2 of these. I offered them a mutual agreement to end, moved into that temporarily while I renovated my principal residence. And it could start to get squirrely in there. But this guy kept, impeccable records here. He had all his insurance information where he transferred over to his rental property to what he was living in. So he ended up untangling himself from this. But it was just a nightmare. It's a lot of work, a lot of stress. But this is what we're living under here, guys. You're guilty until proven innocent. The audacity of you to own a rental property these days in Canada or in Vancouver. It's, fat cat, must have lots of money. If you're an investor and you haven't been audited yet on your home, I'm surprised. You get ready for it. And my advice to you is, which I think all my clients do, they follow my advice on this, just keep impeccable records, guys. Every year I have a folder for all my investment properties. I have my insurance declarations in there, my property tax payments, for my principal residence, of course, my principal residence exemption declaration, my empty homes tax declarations for every year that you got to file, your BC spec tax ones that you've got to file every year. It's just incredible, but you have to do it. They run us through the hoops here. You're guilty until proven innocent, but if you're like me, you've got nothing to hide. Keep the records, because when you get audited, they're going to want a lot of stuff from you here. They're going to want, the last one I did last year, they want your bank rec statements that show the rent checks coming in, or the rent deposits, the automatic deposits coming in. Insurance they want for sure. They want the name, of course, contact information of your tenant, your tenancy agreement. It's stuff that I have here in my filing cabinet. It's not tough, but it's time consuming. You've got to scan this stuff. It's not the greatest system they have at Vancouver City Hall for submitting these records. I remember the first one I got about 3 years ago. It kept getting kicked back because the file size was too big. It's nuts. It's frustrating, but this is the day and age we're living in. You're guilty until proven innocent, and the audacity to actually own a rental property these days, we're going to keep an eye on you for sure. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to all my new subscribers. I'll see you guys next week.